What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So we're all sort of just hanging out waiting for April 2nd with Nintendo and their big Switch 2 blowout, but until then, we are still getting some bits and pieces dropped online, like recently some more images leaking out that seems to show a bit more of that Switch 2 dock, and we'll take a look at that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about PlayStation Plus for the month of March with a pretty big surprise. A certain game that came out not too long ago is already going into that subscription service. And then we did have that Wonder Woman game, of course, that got canceled, along with Monolith Productions getting shut down this week. And now we're starting to see a few more details get out there online, and something tells me this is just the tip of the iceberg. So if you guys enjoy this video, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if new here to the Spawn Wave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button down below. And we're gonna start today with Steam and their Next Fest. Now, this is a large collection of demos, hundreds and hundreds of different games that are available right now, and this will be running until March 3rd. Now, if you want to search through it easily, over on the website, you can see here, they have it set up where you can apply filters, search by keyword, tags, you can change out with different genres, player counts, and you can also look at the top demos, which actually right now is Mecha Break. Down from there, you also have like Gothic 1 Remake, Dune Awakening, Among Us 3D, Haste, Broken Worlds, Lost Skies. I mean, really, the list goes on and on and on, just hundreds and hundreds of different demos, and a lot of them, yes, are for smaller games, but they are still very, very unique and have interesting ideas, and that's typically what you expect from the indie space, so definitely give this a look if you've maybe been interested to find something new or come across something interesting. And again, these are just all free demos that you can download right now and try out, so give it a look. You have basically another week or so until March 3rd. Also, there's been a lot of discussion around that Nemesis system after Monolith Productions was shut down, mostly what's going to happen with it and can anyone else use it? Well, maybe. That's the big thing here, is at least we have a timetable on this if someone wants to use that exact Nemesis system as it's described in their patent, because you can see it here. As pointed out by many publications, this is valid until 2036. Yeah, we still have a while. So August 11th, 2036 is when this will run up. But technically, I guess a studio or publisher could come up with their own roundabout way to do similar things to the Nemesis system. The only issue here is you do have to craft the entire game basically around that system and be prepared to have that as the focal point. And not every studio necessarily wants to do that. In fact, we'll talk a bit more about that whole thing with Wonder Woman later on and what exactly happened with the Nemesis system and that title. But you also probably wouldn't license this thing either. Like, we already talked about inflated budgets. Would you really want to tack on a whole other piece of that budget just from using a system that could affect the entire core gameplay of your title? Probably not. But hey, at the very least, unless they extend it, they have until 2036, and maybe they'll let it expire, or maybe they'll extend it further, and then we'll be talking about 2050 something. Oh, and staying on the topic of Monolith Productions, people, of course, started to look at their back catalog, the games that they've developed and created over their long, long history of about 30 years, and one franchise in particular kept coming up, and that's Fear. Well, here's the good news. If you've been curious about this because maybe you missed the boat in 2005 when it came out and that whole hype cycle, it's pretty cheap right now, and it's DRM free. It's over on GOG. You can see it here. Fear Platinum it's 99 cents. Now, I feel like this is a no-brainer, to be honest, looking at it, because Fear is still a really, really cool game. I mean, it did an awesome job at sort of bringing that narrative, psychological sort of horror into like a first-person action, and the shooting itself is still very good, very impactful, and it has bullet time, which, I mean, come on, like, bullet time's awesome, and this does it in a really, really good way. Like, it's very impactful the whole time when you have that on, and you even still have the bullet trails, like the Matrix style stuff. It's just a good time. And for $1, you really can't go wrong with it. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with the Nintendo Switch 2. Again, we're all kind of hanging out waiting. I think at this point, we're ready to see the software itself, but there has been some interest in the tech behind the Switch 2 because Nintendo themselves still haven't necessarily outlined that. And maybe it'll become more obvious when they do show the games and we see a noticeable graphical improvement or even just improvement of scope and size of these different games, maybe load times. But that dock is still something people point to and they're like, maybe the secret's in there. And I don't necessarily think that's the case, but you know what? There are some interesting details here with the Switch 2 dock from what we're now seeing in some of these CAD files that have been uploaded. So we could see these were posted up. Now this is from Go Nintendo, but it was shared on Imager, and then this seems to be coming from that original person who was posting CAD files and mock-ups of the Switch 2 when that's first started to leak out there. Then we had like the motherboard images show up, and then we had like Joy-Con, the new Joy-Cons that were sort of from the side and then kind of taken apart. But in this instance, we have a pretty good look at this 3D rendering now, this model of the Switch 2 dock. And remember, these CAD files are used specifically, it seems, for accessories and be able to fit them on there in that 3D space for a program. So we would assume then measurements and proportions and stuff would be correct for this one. Now, looking around the side here, it does appear that the ports are indeed all the same. Like, so you have the two USB type A ports on one side, then on the inside where you would plug in your USB-C power adapter, Ethernet, and then an HDMI port here, all as expected. Now, this would be with that back shell removed, and you can see like the protrusion here, I assume, where it'll kind of click on and into place and be supported. But the big thing here, at least for me, with the takeaway, is that there are a ton of vents here, more so than the current Switch dock, and based on what we're hearing about the tech that would be going into the Switch 2 and the potential in docked mode, yeah, we'll need some pretty significant airflow. I don't think there's much in the dock, and that's going to be unfortunate because I'm sure there are people out there who are hoping that there was a bit more to the dock than previously with the current Switch. I don't think so. I think it's being as straightforward as a way to get video from the system, then to your TV, and yes, give you the ability for extra expandability with Ethernet and more USB ports. That's kind of about it. You can even see they have a top shot here that shows the USB-C input there at the bottom where the Switch 2 would sit in, and you have that what's really a spring-loaded piece of plastic just to account for any kind of user error when you throw the Switch 2 into the dock. That all looks pretty standard. The bottom looks like it just maybe is kind of a rubberized texture there, so it can't be knocked over or moved easily. To me, there's just not a lot of surprises here. I guess the curved design is good. It looks slightly more elegant, more somewhat futuristic, I guess, in that sense. That's about it. So unfortunately, I don't think there's gonna be a ton here when the dock arrives with the system and we take it apart and check it out, but we'll still do that and see what we have. But again, a lot of the interest, of course, at this point on the games, because we've already seen the device itself. Let's see what we'll be playing on it, and hopefully it's maybe a new 3D Mario game. We see Metroid Prime 4 there looking really good, and then maybe a few other surprises outside of just Mario Kart. Next up, let's talk about PlayStation Plus Essential for the month of March. These games will be going live March 4th, so right now is your reminder to claim the current games that are on PlayStation Plus, because they'll be going away here in about a week or so. So you may as well add them to your library. Like, if you don't, it's more value. You may as well, you pay for the service if you have PlayStation Plus now. But, you know, when this went up, I looked at it, I laughed a bit because, I mean, it is a little surprising. It's like, wow, this game just came out. But then based on the way EA's been talking about it and how it seemed to be just missing expectations completely, it's also not too surprising. It's a good way for them to recoup costs because you can see the card here for the games going in. Dragon Age the Veilguard is like the big headline title. The game came out about 4 months ago. Here it is now in the service. And yes, people have been tracking pricing, for example, from GameStop, where like the used price was pretty low. It was like $25 or something. And the game came out and it got off to a decent start. Like, people, of course, will track in current player count and stuff, but even like the PlayStation charts and stuff, it did fine there, but then it just completely fell off a cliff. I mean, it was just out of there, right? So it seems, yes, it had a little bit of a holiday run. They told us 1.5 million players. We know that means, okay, it didn't actually sell 1.5 million copies. It's just 1.5 million people have used the game in some way, and that could mean a whole slew of things, promotional events or giveaways with video cards or using their own subscription service through EA. So yeah, this to me is a way for them to try to make up more of that money. It is PlayStation Plus Essential. That is important to note that it will come off of the service when we get into April, right? So it's not like PlayStation Plus Premium where it's always there. This might be a way they're thinking to also spark interest while collecting a check from Sony. But we'll see how that goes for him. But I will say, along with Dragon Age the Veilguard, we have Sonic Colors Ultimate, which that is a good addition there. And then Ninja Turtles, the Cowabunga Collection, which is awesome because that has 13 classic Konami TMNT games. This is a really good collection here for Ninja Turtles fans, and yeah, absolutely recommend checking that one out. So really overall, when I look at this, it's a pretty good month for PlayStation Plus. Whether your opinion on Dragon Age the Veilguard is terrible, erase that. Now be like, okay, I have Sonic Colors Ultimate, and then I have the Cowabunga Collection. Like, that's pretty good too. I will say though, at this point, Veilguard just being in the service, yeah, give it a download and see what you think. I do feel like the gameplay itself was fun. I do. The writing, not great. It's like less than B-level Marvel movie stuff, but still, I don't think the game is like the worst thing ever released. I think it's just like right in there at okay, but the gameplay itself could carry it for many people out there. Again, at the very least, it's basically free if you have the subscription right at this point. You already have it, so give it a download, see what you think. But otherwise, that TMNT collection, don't sleep on it. There's a ton of fun that can be had there, whether it's with multiplayer or just kind of playing through it by yourself. Next up, let's talk about this Wonder Woman game that was canceled, as there are a lot of questions around how exactly it was going, what it was going to end up looking like. How was the Nemesis system going to work for this thing if they were indeed going to use it? Well, we did at least have some comments here, which we can see this over on IGN. They say comic book writer Gail Simone has revealed she worked on Warner Bros. Wonder Woman game before it was canceled. Quote, the game was gorgeous and expansive. It was beautiful to look at. I am not going to give details for a number of reasons, but every effort was made to make this not just a great game, but a great Wonder Woman game, a showpiece epic. They made sure it had Wonder Woman and DC lore on every aspect of the game. It was a thrill and honor to work with them. I know there's a lot of finger pointing going on, but everyone I worked with from Monolith and WB both was enthusiastic and supportive. Everyone wanted to make the best game ever. And I will say this, I don't think that someone's going to show up and just bury the game completely that they were consulting on here. Wouldn't make a lot of sense from their perspective, for like obviously showing that, oh yeah, we were doing good work here, but also just, if you want to do more work in the industry, you're not going to start burying coworkers and studios you're working with. But still, I genuinely believe they thought they had something good there with the game. Now, the question clearly is, what about that Nemesis system? Well, we did have a bit more information around that from Jason Schreier, of course, in his previous report, so we can do a bit of a catch-up here, where they say Monolith's reimagined Nemesis system, developed the much-loved Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, and sequel, would have seen Wonder Woman befriending enemies, but the system was ditched in favor of a more traditional action-adventure game. Now, you would technically, in Shadow of War, one of the big things that they expanded on from Shadow of Mordor was you were able to bring different war chiefs and like orcs and stuff and bring them in to your army. And they would then go off and be able to betray some of their commanders and stuff and rise up the ranks so that they could help you find them and take them down. And that was actually a really cool thing to see, because not only were your enemies advancing through the ranks, but also like the spies basically that you planted would also rise up. And that was really cool. So yeah, I guess it would have been interesting to see it here with Wonder Woman. The issue, I guess, was it wasn't necessarily working out for them, because the other part of the Nemesis system is if you play Shadow of Mordor and stuff, you would die a lot, and hard difficulties, you'd die quite a bit. And they would remember you after killing you and stuff, and you'd have run-ins, and that was one of the ways that it would really work well, because they would have history with you, potentially throughout the entire game. So I'm not 100% sure how that would work out with Wonder Woman, but maybe that's why they decided to take it out. Then it's like, okay, what are we doing here exactly? Because now we're just making a more traditional action-adventure superhero game. And I guess maybe the cost caught up to them, and they were just like, we're just cutting it here, and that's it. So yeah, unfortunate stuff. I do think we'll hear more about this Wonder Woman game. I think there's just too much of a story there for people to ignore, and somebody, I'm sure, in the press will eventually get someone to say something about it, describing gameplay mechanics, the world, maybe even the timeline of events leading up to its cancellation. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about PlayStation Deal Mania, which is currently a sale that is live until March 12th. It has a ton of games, hundreds and hundreds of titles that are marked down, and I went through and started picking some out, and these, I would say for the most part, I picked them out so they're more impulse buy. Like they're games that you'd be scrolling through, say, Steam, is like 80% off or something. You just click it, and then you still haven't played it after a few years. So I figured, hey, let's show you more games like that so you can build up that shrinking back catalog, I'm sure. Anyway, we can see this here. This is the Deal Mania itself page. We'll just kind of scroll through it. We have Last of Us Part 1. That one's $29. I picked that because it's like, it is like half off. And if you've never played it, awesome game there. Crash Insane Trilogy at $16. Again, multiple titles there at $16. Witcher 3, $8. Hades, $10. A Way Out, $5. Unravel 2 at $4. Batman Return to Arkham at $3. Unicorn Overlord, that one's $30. Sackboy: A Big Adventure, really good game, by the way, if you have like younger gamers, kids that you're trying to find something to play with them. This has like drop in, drop out, platforming co-op, and that's $20. Dying Light at $6. Castle Crashers, fun arcade action style game, $3. Alien Isolation at $8. Dragon Ball Z Kakarot, $15. I believe they're gonna have some well, they love DLC for this game, but I think they're going to do some Dyma stuff with that. Persona 4 Golden at $10. Persona 5 at $8. Shadow of the Colossus at $10. Bayonetta at $7. Judgment at $10, and then Lost Judgment at $12. Chrono Cross, absolute classic, at $8. Crysis 2 Remastered is $9, and then Crysis 3 Remastered is $9. Star Ocean: The Last Hope, that's the 4K version, the one that they did like a bit of a remastering touch-up to. That one's at $7. Neo: The World Ends With You at $24, and then Soul Hackers 2 at $15. But those are some of the ones I picked out there. Of course, leave some suggestions down below in the comments for any games that you find that maybe I missed and you want to recommend. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, have you played any of the Fable games? 52% say no. Okay, 33% have at least played one of them, and 15% have played all of them. Some people were surprised in the comments, and the last game, Fable 3, came out in 2010. That was more than 14 years ago. So think about it this way, all right? 14 years is enough time for someone to go through like all of grade school, high school, and now be into college. So it's no wonder to me that there are many people right now playing games who never played Fable because the last one came out that long ago. I mean, think about it now. Some people coming up are, I mean, their first system was a PlayStation 4 and an Xbox One, and they're playing Fortnite and stuff. But yes, also checking in on some of the other games that are out there that all the old people are playing and raving about. It's just, I think we remember these franchises as still core pillars of gaming, when really Fable hasn't been around for a decade and a half now. So here's hoping that the newest one coming out next year is able to revitalize the franchise and introduce even for the first time to a ton of new gamers. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Technically Me saying, I know people have soured on it, but I loved the Mordor games Monolith did. Well, the situation here was people liked Shadow of Mordor back in the day when it came out. It was genuinely unique, interesting, the Nemesis system, all that. But then Shadow of War drops, and they had these loot boxes in there that were just weird, super out of place. And it's like, hold on a minute, this is a single-player game. There are microtransactions, there are loot boxes. What are we doing here? So that was like at that point where ton of backlash on loot boxes. So yes, that game got crushed into oblivion when it was happening. And there was like some weird shady stuff happening where they're adding stuff in like after the game came out. It wasn't great. Now though, all that stuff's been removed. So Shadow of War is an easy recommendation currently, and a lot of people look at it now very fondly as opposed to when it first came out, where it was just getting crushed with all the loot box stuff. And ladies and gentlemen, that's gonna do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe to hear a bit more about AAA gaming and how right now it's a bit of a mess, I'll leave that right below it. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.